So Wolves falling to their second consecutive defeat since that six-match winning run, and a bit of a lacklustre performance, but probably to be expected. It's almost an annual loss against Brighton at home at this point. 7 games without a win in the Premier League against the Seagulls. The last win at home coming in 2021. Gibbs White getting a last-minute winner. That was under Nuno as well, which gives you a bit of perspective as to the last time we beat Brighton at Molineux. It's a rare occurrence. And it hasn't been done in 4 years now. It could be 6, depending on when we get them in the fixtures next year. But yeah, frustrating performance. But we'll start with the team news. Strand Larsen still on the bench, still I think suffering from the sort of the symptoms of that groin strain that he picked up, and Bellegarde as well dropping to the bench, with Gonzalo Guedes getting a surprise start. And it was Guedes, honestly, in the first half that was probably Wolves's. Or the recipient of Wolves' best chances. 2 chances in the first half for him. One from a really well clipped in free kick, and completely free in open space. I think it was probably as surprised as we were to see him with that much room. Probably didn't realise just how much time he had. If he had, maybe he could have taken it down and gotten a slightly better shot off. But in the end, side foots it first time over the bar. I thought that was honestly a sign of things to come. And for the majority of the game it was. But Wolves, it seemed as though they couldn't quite get that final ball right today. There was a lot of decent play up until the final third, and it almost seemed like we didn't quite know what to do with it. I think the City game and this game have shown that without Strand Larsen and that lack of a focal point, the team does tend to struggle, particularly when we're trying to use the width of the fullbacks and cross it in from out wide. If you haven't got that physical presence there, it's always going to be difficult. But Guedes made decent use of, and Wolves themselves made decent use of possession. Another really good chance, another really good bit of play from Wolves in the first half with Aït-Nouri cutting it to Guedes. And again, you just got to shoot first time. Really, really good chance. And takes too long, delays on the ball. And in the end, his shot is far too weak and blocked by the centre-half. And that was really the tale of both halves for Wolves. Brighton not really threatening too much, only 3 shots on target, but 2 goals, which, sort of shows what sort of game this was. But I think Wolves did certainly get some respite in the first half. Could have easily been 2-0 down if you include the penalty. The first goal that Brighton scored, I think, was honestly a really harsh offside call. If it was given the other way, I think we'd probably be complaining. Wolves have had similar decisions given against us in the past, which I think are really harsh. For example, the West Ham one under O'Neill. I think that might have been last season. Kilman with a disallowed goal. Trueira, I think, was adjudged to have been in the line of sight of Fabianski. And again, this one was really confusing. I'm not entirely sure what the offside was for. It must have been interference with the goalkeeper, but I didn't think Minte was really too distracting in that scenario. I mean, feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but I honestly thought it was a harsh call. And from a Brighton perspective, I think justice was served with the penalty. I mean, it was a very blatant penalty. But again, Wolves last week against Man City were caught playing out maybe a little bit too much. Got caught in possession, caught on the counter, and were punished for it. And Brighton did exactly the same to us today. A little bit of a loose pass by Agbadou to Cunha. And in the end, Cunha tries to recover from a slightly poor touch, brings down Weifer, I think it was, in the box. And look, it's a stonewall penalty, yellow card. And to be honest, just disappointing, really, because Wolves overall have been pretty good in possession, but a real lapse in concentration. And Danny Welbeck, look, he got his first disallowed, but the penalty was a good penalty. And again, Wolves falling behind to Brighton seems to be a common occurrence, really. But after that, honestly, Wolves never looked deterred. And this was the strange thing in this game, is that Wolves looked so comfortable that if you didn't know the scoreline, you would have thought that we'd have been 1 or 2-0 up. But there was just never really that end product, and there was a real lack of energy and tenacity in the press as well, I thought. The midfield, although they did fairly well, we really struggled to get any sort of consistent build-up. And the front three really struggled. Same thing in the second half. I mean, Pereira made about 4 changes around the 60th minute mark to try and get a bit of energy. And it sort of worked. And, we kept a decent amount of momentum going despite Brighton having a couple of chances on the counter-attack that they ended up, sort of firing wide and over. But overall, we just didn't really ever look like we were going to score. A lot of the chances that we created were usually, pretty much from out wide. But even with Strand Larsen on the pitch, I think Brighton defended the box very well. Their centre-backs were very deep. And every time Wolves sort of got in and around the sort of 16-yard area, they had about 4 or 5 players back, sort of compact in that space and not allowing Wolves to play through them. And I think at times that led to Wolves either trying to overplay or being a little bit too predictable in the way that they were trying to attack. We either sort of crossed it in from the wing-backs and it was headed out, or we tried to play some intricate 1-2 movements and passages around the penalty area, and it ended up not really working. And just a little bit of a lacklustre performance, considering how good Wolves have been up until this point. I think the City game sort of knocked the stuffing out of us a little bit last week. And this week, again, it just looked like the energy wasn't quite there and the confidence wasn't quite there also. Cunha forced Verbruggen into a pretty decent save, but apart from that, there was that chance played across goal where it took a slight nick, I think, off Van Heck. If that hadn't have happened, I think Strand Larsen probably would have been in there for a tap-in. But apart from that, there wasn't really any clear-cut chances for Wolves. And look, if we're going to try and build something for next season, I think the main thing is trying to, revitalise the front three. I think Menezes, Cunha and Guedes today just didn't quite work. They haven't really played together as a front three, but overall, look, defensively pretty comfortable. And again, the second goal, Wolves are building up a head of steam, constantly creating chances. But again, we sort of get hit on the break, and another simple ball through cuts through the centre-backs again, which was disappointing, and a very simple finish in the end for 2-0. And disappointing because it wasn't a 2-0 game, really. I think Wolves created a decent amount of possession. Although, despite the chances not being fantastic, we had a good amount of the ball, controlled the game, kept the tempo going, and, despite the changes to try and get a little bit more energy on it, it was just not quite working. Felt more like a 0-0 game, in all honesty. But Brighton took the chances they had, fair play to them. A big 3 points for them in their push for Europe. Wolves, on the other hand, I think it's time to sort of, just regroup and try and go again next week and just get as many points on the board. We are safe now, and it would be nice to climb at least maybe to 12th. That's looking a little bit unlikely now. But yeah, look, disappointing result for Wolves. But still some positive signs, we still look comfortable in games and we're not getting battered, which against Brighton we've been accustomed to sort of getting battered. So, look, overall, a frustrating performance, but one that I'm not too concerned about. It's towards the end of the season now and a couple of players with injuries, but I think in the last 2 games, we can at least hope that Wolves can create a little bit more going forward and maybe get a couple more goals towards the end of the season. But yeah, another okay performance with a disappointing result. And hopefully next week we can have something a little bit more positive. But make sure, if you liked the video, to drop a like and also comment and subscribe. I've, of course, recently hitting 19,000 and we're looking to hit that 20 for next season. As always, we're going to have plenty of transfer news coming your way and, potentially some scouting. And my usual summer transfer video coming up as well in the next month or 2. So yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss a video here on Talking Wolves. Well, take care everyone, and we'll see you next week.